In the long history of Pokemon, there exists a small, carefully chosen group that stands apart from all others creatures, known as pseudo-legendaries. The term wasn't coined by the developers themselves, but by fans who noticed patterns across each generation. These rare beings share a consistent set of traits. They are always part of a three-stage evolutionary line. They reach the highest possible base stat totals outside of true legendaries, and they often appear late in the story, requiring patience, skill, and dedication to obtain. For many players, they represent the ultimate prize within a regional Pokédex, not mythical gifts from events, not untouchable legendaries tied to grand myths, but companions who can be raised from humble beginnings into titans rivaling gods. The very first of these titans was Dragonite, the unexpected final form of an otherwise unassuming evolutionary line. Starting from the tiny Dratini, a serpent hidden in remote waters, the journey to raising this dragon was itself a test of persistence. Dratini was notoriously rare, found only in isolated corners of the world, and often requiring the patience of hours of fishing. Its second form, Dragonair, was elegant and mystical, embodying serenity and grace. Then came the surprise. At the end of this line was not a slender, ethereal serpent, but a massive orange dragon with wings, a creature that looked entirely different from its earlier forms. For children playing the original games, this sudden transformation felt almost like a secret, a reward for dedication that reshaped expectations of evolution. The dragon's design carried cultural weight. In Japan, dragons are often seen as symbols of wisdom, guardians of nature's balance, or deities of water and skies. In Western traditions, dragons are usually portrayed as destructive beasts, hoarding treasure and spewing flame. Dragonite merged these ideas into something new. Its gentle expression and rounded form suggested kindness, yet its overwhelming stats and abilities showed devastating strength. It was both a guardian of the skies and a powerhouse on the battlefield, embodying a balance between ferocity and compassion. This duality became a hallmark of pseudo-legendaries. Each would stand as both terrifying and awe-inspiring, powerful yet often tied to deeper lore or unexpected traits. In battle, the dragon quickly earned a reputation as one of the most dominant companions in the original generation. Its move pool was vast, allowing it to learn devastating techniques from multiple types, and its sheer bulk meant it could withstand blows that felled others. While the game's early mechanics left its typing vulnerable, skilled trainers knew that raising it could change the tide of any encounter. The creature became a mark of prestige. If someone had one fully trained, it showed patience, commitment, and mastery of the game. For children in playground battles, simply sending it out felt like a statement of pride. The anime reinforced its legendary aura. One of its earliest appearances showed the dragon towering over a lighthouse, portrayed as a giant whose size dwarfed all others. This depiction left a lasting impression. Here was a creature that blurred the line between ordinary Pokemon and true legends, a guardian of the seas and skies, whose mere presence was awe-inspiring. Later episodes depicted it as kind-hearted and noble, a contrast to its destructive potential, reminding viewers that true power often comes with restraint. The trading card game also captured its mystique. Early holographic cards of the dragon became coveted treasures, their shimmering foil and vibrant design making them stand out among collections. Owning one was not just about gameplay, it was about holding a symbol of status, a reminder that this pseudo-legendary was something special. Even today, rare prints of its cards fetch high prices, valued as much for nostalgia as for competitive utility. Culturally, the dragon also reflected a shift in the franchise itself. Before Dragonite, there was no template for what a pseudo legendary should be. By giving players a creature hidden away, hard to raise, and ultimately devastating in power, the designers set the mold for future generations. Each new era would include its own pseudo, a creature not tied to myths or gods, but to effort and reward, a titan born from patience. Dragonite became not just a strong addition, but the blueprint for what was to come. An often overlooked detail about the dragon's role in the original games is how it subtly encouraged community discovery. Because Dratini was so rare and difficult to obtain, many players first heard rumors about it on playgrounds or from friends. For some, the dragon was not discovered through gameplay, but through whispered secrets. There's a hidden dragon in the safari zone, or fish in this spot long enough, and you'll find something rare. This sense of mystery added to its allure, making it feel like a true legend, even though it was technically obtainable by any dedicated player. Over the years, Dragonite's role evolved alongside the franchise. Later generations gave it new moves, new abilities, and eventually competitors in the pseudo legendary category. Yet, despite being the first, it has never lost its sense of uniqueness. Its design remains distinct, more cartoonish and approachable than later pseudos, which leaned toward ferocity. Its lore remains memorable, tied to both Eastern and Western traditions, and its place in competitive and casual play continues to be one of respect. For many, it is the original pseudo legendary, not just by technical definition, but by emotional weight. The first to prove that raising a rare companion could feel just as rewarding as catching a legendary. As the story of pseudo legendaries begins with this dragon, so too does the fascination with what makes them special. From its humble beginnings as a rare catch, to its shocking final form, to its role as both powerhouse and guardian, Dragonite set the standard for everything that followed. It showed that with patience, effort, and care, even the rarest of companions could become legends in their own right, not by divine origin, but by the bond between trainer and Pokemon. The second generation of Pokemon brought with it darker themes, a greater emphasis on legacy, and a region built on duality. Within this world of towers, myths, and rebirth, players discovered a new pseudo legendary Tyranitar, a towering monster that felt like a force of nature more than a companion. Unlike the skybound gentleness of Dragonite, this new titan was destructive, armored like a living mountain, and inspired by kaiju, the giant monsters of Japanese cinema. For many children, it was the first time a Pokemon felt directly connected to those colossal beasts seen in movies, a nod to Godzilla itself. The journey to raising one was difficult by design. Its first stage, Larvitar, was notoriously rare and hidden away in the caves of the region. Trainers who found one discovered that its early power was underwhelming, forcing patience and dedication. Through persistence, Larvitar evolved into Pupitar, a strange cocoon-like form that hinted at the immense strength locked within. Only at the final stage did the effort pay off, when the towering beast emerged as one of the most powerful creatures of its generation. For many players, finally obtaining it felt like conquering a mountain after a long and grueling climb. Its design was striking. Covered in jagged armor with a stance of dominance, the creature looked less like a wild animal and more like an apex predator sculpted from stone. Spikes and scales suggested durability, while its sharp tail and claws emphasized destructive power. Unlike Dragonite, which had warmth and approachability, this titan looked fearsome. It wasn't a guardian of skies or waters, but an embodiment of natural disaster, a walking earthquake, a creature whose mere presence reshaped its surroundings. In battle, it quickly established itself as a powerhouse. Its ability to summon sandstorms reflected its role as a landscape altering presence, one whose environment changed simply by existing. These storms didn't just add visual flair, they had competitive implications, damaging opponents while bolstering its own resilience. This mechanic tied perfectly to its identity as a creature of mountains and deserts, a being that carried its environment wherever it went. Few Pokemon before it felt so thematically tied to their ability in battle. The trading card game embraced this destructive aura. Early cards often showed it stomping through cities, surrounded by rubble and sand. The art drew heavily from kaiju cinema, making it feel less like a Pokemon and more like a mythic monster whose arrival spelled doom. These cards became highly sought after, both for their power and their dramatic artwork. Even outside of gameplay, the mere image of this titan left an impression, an unstoppable force encased in armor, roaring across ruined landscapes. The anime portrayed it with similar intensity. Episodes showed the Titan as almost uncontrollable, feared even by experienced trainers. Its destructive tendencies mirrored its in game lore, which described it as capable of reshaping mountains and destroying entire landscapes with ease. These depictions cemented the idea that the pseudo legendary of the second generation was not a gentle giant, but a terrifying force of raw strength, one that inspired both awe and fear. Cultural inspirations deepened this identity. Drawing from Godzilla and other kaiju, the creature represented humanity's age old fascination with giant beasts of destruction. In Japanese culture, kaiju often symbolize nature's wrath, reminders of how fragile human constructs are against forces beyond control. By embodying this theme, the Titan became more than just another strong Pokemon. It became a cultural symbol within the franchise, tying childhood imagination to larger than life monsters seen on screen. Despite its destructive nature, raising it created a bond of pride. Trainers who managed to evolve it understood the effort required to tame such a beast. It wasn't easily obtained, nor was it forgiving in its early forms, but by the time it stood at full strength, it became a companion that represented endurance, patience, and triumph. The relationship between trainer and titan mirrored the themes of the region itself: growth through trial, strength earned through persistence. In later generations, its reputation only grew. Competitive play often revolved around its presence, with sandstorms becoming a defining mechanic of entire battle formats. It wasn't just a pseudo legendary, it was a centerpiece of strategies, a force so dominant that entire teams were built around it. Its influence on competitive battling highlighted one of the defining qualities of pseudos. They weren't just powerful in lore, they shaped the way people played the games themselves. Even today, the Mountain Titan remains a symbol of what pseudo legendaries represent. It is not tied to divine myths or cosmic legends, but to human fascination with monsters, disaster, and strength. It showed that pseudos could embody not just raw stats, but themes and cultural influences that resonated deeply with players. Where Dragonite embodied wonder and guardianship, this creature embodied destruction and dominance. Together, they set the stage for all pseudo legendaries to come diverse in design, united in awe. By the time the third generation arrived, fans had come to expect each new adventure to reveal a hidden titan, a pseudo legendary, tucked away in the late game, waiting for the most determined trainers to uncover. This time, The designers took a different approach, creating a creature whose very existence told a story about dreams and transformation. That creature was Salamence, a dragon that symbolized the impossible wish of flight. The journey began with Bagon, a small and frustrated dragonling found deep within caves. Lore described it as a creature that hurled itself against rock walls in futile attempts to fly, chipping its body and hardening itself with each crash. For players, this small detail was striking. Here was a Pokemon defined not just by its strength, but by its longing, a creature whose entire identity revolved around the desire to soar. As it grew into Shelgon, the dream seemed further away, its body encased in a shell that made flight impossible. But patience and persistence paid off when fully evolved. The beast spread its wings at last, transforming into a dragon that embodied freedom itself. The story of its evolution made Salamence feel personal. Unlike previous pseudos, which emphasized power and dominance, this one was about longing fulfilled. Players who raised Bagon felt they were part of that journey, guiding a creature from frustration and limitation into triumph. The moment it finally spread its wings was not just a gameplay milestone, but a narrative one, a payoff for both trainer and Pokemon. Design choices reinforced this theme. Its wings were massive and curved, designed to look aerodynamic and powerful. Its sleek body, sharp horns, and ferocious gaze combined to create a creature that looked every bit the apex predator of the skies. Unlike Dragonite, which balanced ferocity with warmth, this dragon leaned into menace. Its red wings and deep blue body carried an aura of dominance, leaving no doubt that it was a hunter. In this way, it reflected a different interpretation of what a dragon could be, not a guardian, but a conqueror of the skies. In battle, the creature quickly proved itself a powerhouse. Its high attack and speed allowed it to dominate opponents, while its versatile move pool gave it tools to crush nearly any foe. Competitive players quickly recognized it as one of the most threatening pseudos ever created, capable of sweeping entire teams when left unchecked. Its reputation in tournaments cemented the idea that pseudo legendaries were not just lore rich or aesthetically striking, but genuine pillars of competitive play. The anime highlighted its power and majesty. Episodes that featured it often portrayed it as a terrifying opponent, overwhelming even skilled trainers. In films, it appeared as a symbol of destruction, swooping through skies with devastating attacks. Yet at the same time, its story of flight was sometimes referenced, reminding viewers that beneath the ferocity lay the same dream that began with Bagon's futile leaps. This balance of menace and inspiration made it one of the most layered pseudos in the series. The trading card game captured both sides of its identity. Some cards depicted it in mid-flight, wings spread wide as if dominating the skies, while others emphasized its ferocious attacks with fire and dragon energy swirling around it. Collectors prize these cards not just for gameplay utility, but for their striking artwork. To hold one was to hold a piece of the dream of flight itself, crystallized in shimmering foil. Cultural inspirations behind this beast are worth noting. Western dragons are often depicted as destructive forces that rule the skies, and Salamence drew directly from this tradition, where Dragonite embodied a gentler, Eastern-inspired dragon. This creature leaned heavily into the idea of dragons as predators, apex hunters feared across mythologies. By embracing this side of dragon lore, the designers gave the pseudo-legendary roster more diversity, showing that not all dragons had to be noble or wise. Some could be fearsome, untamed forces of nature. One fascinating detail is how its story ties directly into the theme of the third generation itself. The Hoenn region emphasized nature, weather, and balance between land, sea, and sky. Salamence perfectly embodied the sky's role in this triad, a creature that symbolized the freedom and danger of open air. Just as Groudon and Kyogre represented extremes of land and sea, this dragon reflected the wildness of the skies. It wasn't a legendary bound to myth, but its presence carried symbolic weight nonetheless. For trainers, raising it was a badge of honor. Bagon's rarity meant that not every player even found one, and those who did had to endure its long path to evolution. The payoff, however, was worth it. When the dragon finally emerged, trainers felt that they had guided it through its frustration and limitations into triumph. This sense of shared journey made Salamence one of the most rewarding pseudos to raise, reinforcing the idea that these creatures were more than just strong, they were companions with stories. In the years since, the beast has remained iconic. Its mega evolution later amplified its identity, curving its wings into crescent shapes that made it look like a living scythe cutting through the air. This form reinforced its role as a predator of the skies, pushing its design into even more terrifying territory. Fans debated whether this evolution made it look sleeker or stranger, but there was no denying that it emphasized the same theme, a creature that had achieved its dream of flight and now ruled the skies with dominance. Ultimately, Salamence showed how pseudo legendaries could embody more than raw power. It represented longing, persistence, and fulfillment. From a small dragon hurling itself against cave walls to a predator ruling the skies, its journey was both inspiring and intimidating. It reminded players that dreams are not achieved easily. They require patience, struggle, and perseverance. But when they are achieved, they can change everything. Not every pseudo legendary embodies dragons, storms, or beasts of destruction. In the third generation, players discovered something entirely different, a titan of steel and thought, a creature designed to resemble not only power but intellect. That being was Metagross, a mechanical guardian that blurred the line between Pokemon and machine. Where Salamence represented the skies and Dragonite symbolized guardianship, this new pseudo was calculation itself, an artificial looking being of alien design. The journey began with Beldum, a small and odd creature that seemed more like a floating magnet than a living being. Its simplicity was deceptive because behind that steel shell was a foundation for one of the most advanced designs in the series. As it evolved into Metang, the mechanical look became more obvious. Its body was angular, its face emotionless, and its movements precise. The true reward came at the final stage, when the creature's body became a cross-shaped juggernaut, four legs pounding like pistons, and a glowing red eye peering from its core. It was as if a machine of war had taken on life, intimidating in every sense. Design inspiration for the Titan is often connected to supercomputers and artificial intelligence. Its Pokédex entries describe it as having four brains that work together, computing battle strategies with terrifying speed. When it evolved into its final form, those brains fused, turning it into a being of flawless logic. Unlike other pseudos, which symbolized instinct or raw might, this one was intellect sharpened into weaponry. Its steel armor reflected resilience, while its psychic typing represented calculation. This unique combination set it apart from all other pseudos before or since. In battle, the creature was a fortress and a weapon at once. Its bulk allowed it to withstand devastating blows, while its offensive stats gave it the ability to crush opponents with frightening efficiency. Moves like Meteor Mash not only reflected its steel typing, but also emphasized its precision attacks delivered with the force of meteors and the accuracy of calculation. For many competitive players, raising one felt like having a perfect soldier on their team, unfeeling, unstoppable, and relentless. The trading card game emphasized its alien like qualities. Many cards depicted the machine in outer space, floating against the stars as if it belonged to another world. Its holographic cards often shimmered with metallic light, reinforcing the idea that it was less an organic creature and more an artificial intelligence given form. Collectors prize these cards not only for their rarity, but also for their striking, futuristic design. To own one was to hold a piece of the Pokemon world that looked forward rather than back, a vision of what evolution could mean in an age of technology. The anime showcased its destructive power vividly. One of the most memorable portrayals came from Steven, the champion of the Hoenn region, who used the mechanical titan as his signature companion. Its presence in battle scenes emphasized his calm, strategic nature. Just as Stephen was a calculating, thoughtful trainer, his companion reflected that identity, overwhelming opponents not with reckless force but with methodical strikes. This pairing reinforced the idea that the machine was as much about intellect as it was about strength. Cultural inspirations for the creature reach beyond kaiju or myth. It draws heavily from the imagery of mecha, Japanese robots, and mechanical suits that have long fascinated media and storytelling. The four-legged stance, the glowing red eye, and the sharp, angular design all tie it to depictions of mechanical guardians. By embracing this aesthetic, the designers gave the pseudo-legendary category new variety, showing that these titans didn't all need to be dragons or beasts. Some could be the embodiment of progress, industry, and cold logic. Its cry in the games reinforced its alien identity. Unlike roars or growls, its sound was metallic and echoing, as though grinding steel and machinery were colliding. Hearing it made players feel uneasy, reminding them that this was not a natural beast, but something stranger, perhaps unnatural. This added to its mystique, making encounters with it feel distinct compared to other pseudos. For trainers, raising one was not easy. Beldum was notoriously difficult to catch, with a catch rate among the lowest in the series. Even after capture, it was frustrating to raise because of its limited move pool in its early stages. Patience was required, and many players struggled with it. But those who persisted found the reward more than worth it. By the time it evolved into its final form, the mechanical giant was one of the strongest creatures in the entire region. It became a badge of honor, not only for its power, but for the effort required to nurture it into existence. In later generations, its mega evolution further emphasized its alien qualities. The mechanical guardian grew additional limbs, its X-shaped cross glowing brighter, and its body looked even more intimidating. The megaform made it float without legs, hovering ominously as if pure willpower and psychic force kept it aloft. This transformation cemented its image as a futuristic weapon, less a Pokemon, more a living war machine. Ultimately, Metagross demonstrated how pseudo-legendaries could break the mold. It didn't rely on myths of dragons or natural disasters, but on intellect, technology, and mechanical strength. It was proof that pseudo-legendary status wasn't about fitting one archetype, but about embodying themes of awe, power, and mastery. For players, it represented progress, the meeting point between living beings and artificial creation, between nature and machine. It showed that strength could come not only from instinct, but from intelligence sharpened into perfection. When the fourth generation of Pokemon arrived, fans wondered what form the next pseudo legendary would take. They had seen dragons that symbolized dreams, titans of steel that embodied intellect, and monsters drawn from kaiju lore. The newest edition, however, felt unlike anything before, a predator that combined the traits of a dragon and a shark, designed to embody speed, ferocity, and dominance. That being was Garchomp, a creature that would go on to define not only its generation, but also competitive battling for years to come. The journey to raising it began with Gibble, a small, round, almost playful looking dragon found in caves and deserts. It seemed harmless at first, but its design hinted at sharper instincts, with small fins and teeth that suggested the predator it would become. As it evolved into Gabite, the playful appearance gave way to something more aggressive, its fins sharper, its stance more menacing. Finally, at full strength, it transformed into a landshark dragon with wings that allowed it to glide at blinding speeds. The evolution line captured the idea of a creature maturing from playful youth to apex predator, a design choice that made the final stage all the more impactful. Its design was unique in how it blended inspirations. The land shark concept gave it the appearance of a predator equally at home in deserts and skies, its body shaped for both cutting through sand and slicing through air. The wings weren't for traditional flight, but for high speed gliding, giving it the image of a stealth fighter jet. This blend of animal and machine like imagery made the beast stand out among pseudos, giving it a modern, almost militaristic edge. In battle, it quickly earned a reputation as one of the strongest Pokemon ever created. With incredible speed and attack power, it was capable of sweeping entire teams with ease. Its typing gave it both offensive and defensive versatility, while its move pool included devastating options like Earthquake, Outrage, and Fire Fang. What truly cemented its reputation, however, was how it dominated competitive formats. In certain generations, it was considered so powerful that it was banned to higher tiers of competitive play, a rare honor that underscored just how overwhelming it could be. Few pseudos before or since have shaped the competitive scene as much as this desert predator. The trading card game captured this dominance vividly. Card artwork often showed the beast lunging forward with teeth bared, fins slicing the air, and backgrounds filled with motion lines to emphasize its speed. Some rare cards depicted it clashing with other legendaries, reinforcing its role as a pseudo that rivaled even gods. Collectors valued these cards for their aggressive imagery, a stark contrast to the more serene or mystical artwork given to other pseudos. The anime also highlighted its destructive potential. In one of the most memorable portrayals, Cynthia, the champion of the Sinnoh region, used the predator as her signature partner. This pairing instantly made it iconic. The strongest trainer in the region wielded the strongest pseudo, a perfect reflection of its identity. The way Cynthia's companion dominated battles emphasized not only its strength, but also its elegance, fighting with both speed and overwhelming power. To viewers, it became a symbol of championship level excellence, an image that still resonates whenever discussions of the anime's greatest battles arise. Cultural inspirations behind the creature draw heavily from predators that instill fear. Sharks have long symbolized danger in oceans, while dragons represent dominance in myth. By combining the two, designers created a creature that tapped into primal fears and admiration simultaneously. Its body, shaped like a jet, also reflected modern imagery of speed and warfare, tying it not only to nature, but to technology and human ideas of power. The result was a pseudo that felt both timeless and contemporary. One fascinating detail lies in how its Pokedex entries describe its speed. Some entries claim it can fly faster than the speed of sound, slicing through air like a jet. While clearly exaggerated, this lore reinforced the idea that it wasn't just another dragon, it was the embodiment of velocity itself. For players, this made sending it into battle feel exhilarating, as if they were unleashing a force of nature that no opponent could outrun. For trainers, raising one was a rewarding yet challenging experience. Gibble was rare, often hidden deep within caves that required effort to explore. Its early stages were not especially strong, requiring patience to nurture, but once fully evolved, the payoff was enormous. The landshark became not only a powerhouse, but a badge of honor, proof that the trainer had endured the trials of its growth to wield one of the most powerful companions in the series. Its mega evolution in later generations amplified its ferocity even further. Spikes grew sharper, fins extended, and its overall form became more menacing, though some fans joked that the mega design looked almost excessive. Regardless, its role in battle became even more overwhelming, cementing its reputation as one of the deadliest pseudos in existence. Whether in its base or mega form, the beast remained a symbol of dominance. Ultimately, Garchomp exemplified everything that made pseudo legendaries so compelling. It was powerful, rare, tied to cultural inspirations, and capable of reshaping both lore and gameplay. Where Dragonite represented guardianship, Tyranitar destruction, Salamence dreams, and Metagross intellect, this desert predator embodied raw speed and dominance. It proved that pseudos weren't just strong additions to the Pokedex, they were defining symbols of each generation, creatures that players remembered long after the credits rolled. Every pseudo legendary tells a story, not just of power, but of what its generation wanted to explore thematically. In the fifth generation, the region of Unova introduced a creature unlike any seen before, one that carried with it myths of monsters from ancient tales. This was Hydreigon, a three-headed dragon whose design and lore leaned heavily into darker themes than its predecessors. Where others represented dreams, intellect, or natural disaster, this one embodied chaos and destruction itself. The journey began with Dino, a small blind dragon that stumbled through caves, guided only by instinct. Its second stage, Zuelis, grew into a two-headed beast whose heads constantly fought with one another, symbolizing conflict and instability. Only when it fully evolved did its form stabilize, transforming into a hydra-like dragon with three heads, one dominant and two auxiliary, that devoured everything in its path. This progression told a story of growth not toward harmony, but toward overwhelming hunger, a direct inversion of the patience driven narratives tied to earlier pseudos. Design inspiration came directly from the myth of the Hydra, the many headed serpent of Greek legend. In those stories, the creature could regenerate lost heads, making it nearly impossible to defeat. The Unova dragon doesn't regrow lost parts, but its three heads emphasize relentless destruction, a monster that overwhelms through sheer volume of attacks. Its dark typing reinforced this idea it wasn't just a dragon, but a shadowy force of ruin, feared rather than revered. In battle, the Hydra became infamous for its overwhelming special attack power. With access to devastating moves like Draco Meteor and Dark Pulse, it was capable of obliterating opponents with frightening efficiency. Its bulk and typing gave it resilience, while its move pool included options from fire to electric coverage, allowing it to crush would be counters. At its peak, it was one of the most feared pseudos in competitive play, a reputation that fit perfectly with its lore as a destructive force. The trading card game emphasized this identity with dramatic artwork. Many cards depicted it emerging from shadows, its three heads gnashing, wings spread like a curtain of darkness. Holographic prints gave its scales a shimmering, ominous quality, making it a favorite for collectors who loved darker, more fearsome designs. These cards often showed the Hydra consuming energy or unleashing waves of destruction, visually reinforcing its role as the embodiment of chaos. In the anime and films, the creature often appeared as a threat, overwhelming trainers with sheer power. Unlike Dragonite, which was portrayed as gentle, or Salamence, which was shown as majestic, this dragon was typically depicted as uncontrollable, a beast that instilled fear. Its appearances leaned into its dark typing, presenting it as something closer to a monster than a partner, an unusual choice that made it stand out among pseudos. Cultural context helps explain why Unova's pseudo leaned into this darkness. The fifth generation marked a shift in tone for the series, with themes of truth, ideals, and conflict between opposing forces. Hydreigon embodied the destructive side of that equation, an unstoppable beast that consumed without reason, reminding players that not all power comes with grace. By creating a pseudo that symbolized unchecked chaos, the designers gave the roster of pseudos more variety, expanding their roles beyond simple guardians or predators. Its Pokedex entries reinforced this terrifying image. Many described it as devouring everything it sees, leaving nothing behind in its path. Unlike earlier pseudos, which often included hopeful or noble qualities, this dragon was unambiguously destructive. That choice made it one of the most feared Pokemon in lore, a creature parents might have warned children about in bedtime stories. This level of menace was unusual for the franchise, yet it fit perfectly with Unova's more ambitious storytelling. For trainers, raising one was a challenge, not just because of its rarity, but because of its level curve. Dino required extraordinary patience to evolve, and even Zuelos struggled due to its unusual dual-headed nature. Only at very high levels did it finally become Hydreigon, making it one of the most demanding pseudos to raise. But for those who endured, the reward was immense, a powerhouse that felt nearly unstoppable once trained. That difficulty reinforced its identity as something dangerous and rare, not to be taken lightly. Over time, its reputation mellowed slightly. Later competitive formats balanced its dominance, and newer pseudos took the spotlight. Yet the Hydra remains one of the most iconic pseudos, remembered not just for its strength, but for its design rooted in mythology. It was proof that pseudo legendaries could push into darker themes, exploring the line between legendary guardians and monstrous nightmares. Ultimately, Hydreigon reminded players that pseudo legendaries don't always represent ideals or triumphs. Sometimes they embody chaos. Its three heads symbolized not balance but conflict, not wisdom but hunger. For players, it was both a challenge and a reward, a beast that felt truly dangerous in a way few Pokemon ever had. In doing so, it added a new layer to the tapestry of pseudos, ensuring that the category would never grow predictable. Not every pseudo-legendary is designed to look menacing or destructive. When the sixth generation introduced its new candidate for the role, fans were surprised to find a creature that looked less like a predator and more like a friend. That being was Gudra, a dragon covered in smooth, glistening skin, whose soft features and kind-hearted nature set it apart from its predecessors. Where earlier pseudos leaned heavily into intimidation, this one carried warmth, proving that overwhelming strength could also be paired with compassion. The line began with Gumi, a tiny, gelatinous creature that seemed almost laughably weak. Often described as one of the frailest dragons in existence, it was mocked by some fans as being too fragile for its typing, but this was part of the design's intent. Gumi's appearance encouraged trainers to overlook its power, only to be surprised by what patience could unlock. When it grew into Sliggoo, its body stretched and developed more defined features, though it still carried a somewhat awkward appearance. Finally, with dedication and careful training, it evolved into the mighty yet gentle dragon that carried the legacy of Kalos's pseudo. The creature's design took inspiration from mythical slimes and mollusk-like beings. Its antennae, rounded face, and dripping goo emphasized softness rather than harshness. Yet despite this appearance, it was anything but weak. Lore described it as fiercely loyal and protective, especially toward trainers who showed it kindness. This mixture of cuteness and power made it one of the most unusual pseudos, a being that looked approachable but hid immense strength within. In battle, the dragon proved itself a formidable tank. Its high special defense allowed it to withstand devastating attacks, while its wide move pool gave it versatility in return. Moves like Dragon Pulse and Thunderbolt made it unpredictable, while its gooey body ability could slow down faster opponents. Competitive players quickly learned that appearances were deceiving. Beneath the soft exterior was a creature capable of anchoring entire teams. This role as a defensive pseudo contrasted sharply with others, which often focused on offense, making it unique in its approach to strength. The anime showcased its personality beautifully. One of the most memorable portrayals came when Ash trained a Gudra of his own. Unlike the terrifying dominance of Cynthia's Garchomp or the chaos of Hydreigon, this dragon was gentle, emotional, and deeply bonded with its trainer. Scenes showed it protecting friends and standing bravely against powerful foes, not out of aggression, but out of loyalty. This depiction made fans fall in love with it, proving that pseudos didn't need to be fearsome to be iconic. The trading card game also reflected its gentle aura. Artwork often depicted the dragon in bright, colorful settings, surrounded by nature rather than destruction. Holographic cards shimmered with pastel tones, emphasizing beauty instead of menace. Collectors appreciated this softer take, which made it stand out among the darker, sharper pseudo designs. For many, owning one of these cards was like holding a reminder that strength can be kind as well as powerful. Its Pokédex entries reinforced this dual identity. Some described it as affectionate, even hugging its trainer with gooey arms, while others emphasized its strength in battle. This blend of tenderness and might made it feel more human-like than many pseudos, as if it carried emotions that others lacked. For younger players, especially, it became a favorite because it looked less intimidating and more like a friendly partner who just happened to be incredibly strong. Cultural inspirations may also play a role in its uniqueness. The designers were likely influenced by folklore surrounding slimes and soft-bodied creatures, often depicted as harmless but surprisingly resilient. By turning such a concept into a dragon, they inverted expectations, reminding players that power doesn't always come in the form of fangs and claws. Instead, sometimes it can come from adaptability, loyalty, and endurance. For trainers, raising one was a rewarding process. Gumi was rare and often found only in specific weather conditions, such as rain, reflecting its connection to nature. Its unusual evolution method, requiring rain or a wet environment, added an extra layer of mystery, making the journey feel more immersive. By the time it reached its final stage, trainers who had nurtured the tiny blob could look with pride at a dragon that embodied both tenderness and strength. Over time, this pseudo gained even more variety. In the Hisui region, it received a regional form where its gooey body hardened into a metallic shell, creating a new balance between softness and armor. This version further emphasized its versatility, showing that even among pseudos, it could adapt to different environments while retaining its core identity of loyalty and resilience. Ultimately, Gudra proved that pseudo legendaries don't all need to follow the same mold. It wasn't a kaiju, a predator, or a mechanical weapon. Instead, it was a guardian of loyalty and kindness, a dragon whose greatest strength lay in its heart as much as in its stats. For players, it stood as a reminder that power takes many forms, and sometimes the most unassuming companions can become the most dependable legends. Each pseudo legendary carries the weight of its region's themes. In Alola, a land shaped by islands, tradition, and ritual, the role was filled by a creature that embodied the spirit of a guardian warrior. That creature was Kommo-o, a dragon covered in metallic scales, its body echoing both armor and ritual regalia. Unlike the gentle aura of Gudra or the chaotic destruction of Hydreigon, this pseudo was designed as a disciplined fighter, a being tied to combat, honor, and protection. The journey began with Jangmo-o, a small dragon found only in isolated areas, hidden away in cliffs and valleys. Its earliest lore described it as a creature that constantly trained, striking its scales together in practice, preparing for the battles to come. This theme of training carried through its evolution into Hakamo-o, where its body gained more scales and its stance became that of a martial artist. Finally, after dedication and perseverance, it reached its final form, a dragon cloaked in shimmering plates, a living symbol of discipline and resilience. Design inspirations for the warrior were drawn from multiple sources. Its scales, which clattered like cymbals, were inspired by both traditional Hawaiian hula instruments and samurai armor. This gave the creature a cultural grounding in both the real traditions of Alola's inspirations and the broader idea of warriors bound by code. The golden hue of its scales suggested prestige, while its hunched yet powerful stance conveyed readiness, as though every step it took was measured and purposeful. In battle, the dragon proved as disciplined as its lore suggested. Its move pool included powerful techniques like clanging scales and its signature Z move, Clangorous Soul Blaze, which allowed it to unleash both offense and symbolic flair. These moves reinforced its identity as a fighter whose very body was an instrument of power, ringing out in battle like a war drum. Competitively, it often struggled against faster or more versatile opponents, but in the hands of skilled trainers, it demonstrated a balance of resilience and power that few others could match. The anime depicted the warrior as a protector and a challenge, often appearing as a guardian within trials. Its presence was intimidating, but not monstrous. Instead, it was shown as honorable, as if every battle it fought was not for chaos, but for testing the strength of others. This depiction tied directly into Alola's theme of trials and rites of passage, making it feel like more than a pseudo, it was an embodiment of the region's spirit. The trading card game embraced its martial identity. Many cards depicted the dragon mid-strike, scales glowing, its body twisted in dynamic combat poses. The holographic treatments often emphasized the shimmer of its scales, making them appear like actual armor flashing under sunlight. Collectors appreciated this artistic direction, which gave the warrior a sense of motion and intensity even when frozen on a card. One of the most fascinating details about this pseudo lies in its lore connection to protection. Pokedex entries often described it as defending those it considered worthy, shielding others with its scales. This narrative diverged from the destruction focused pseudos of earlier generations, offering instead a creature whose strength was meant to guard. By making its role that of a protector rather than a predator, the designers added variety to the category, ensuring that pseudo legendaries could reflect many different philosophies. For trainers, raising one was a demanding but rewarding experience. Kommo-o was rare and difficult to find, tucked away in remote areas that required exploration and persistence. Its evolution line required significant dedication, but the final reward was a partner that felt like a true warrior companion. When it stood at full power, scales ringing with every move, trainers could feel the weight of its heritage, a guardian dragon shaped by ritual and combat, loyal to those who trained alongside it. Culturally, the warrior also tied into broader themes of honor and discipline found in both Eastern and Polynesian traditions. By combining elements of samurai armor, Hawaiian hula instruments, and martial arts imagery, its design became a blend of influences that celebrated both strength and cultural richness. This made it not just another strong dragon, but a thematic reflection of Alola's unique identity. Later games expanded on its reputation by highlighting its role as a trial guardian, reinforcing its connection to Alola's traditions. In these roles, the dragon wasn't portrayed as a random wild Pokemon, but as part of a ritualized challenge, one that tested trainers' readiness for greater journeys. This gave it a mythic quality within the region, elevating it from a rare powerhouse to a symbolic protector. Ultimately, Kommo-o demonstrated that pseudo-legendaries didn't need to embody chaos, destruction, or ferocity alone. They could also represent discipline, honor, and protection. Its shimmering scales, ringing like cymbals, reminded players that strength could be musical as well as violent, disciplined as well as devastating. For trainers who raised it, the warrior stood as a testament to patience and respect a dragon whose legacy lay not in fear, but in the honor it carried into every battle. Every pseudo legendary carries a sense of wonder, but few blend mystery and menace as seamlessly as the one introduced in Galar. This was Dragapult, a spectral dragon that looked both ancient and futuristic, both ethereal and mechanical. Its design suggested a creature caught between worlds, one foot in the realm of ghosts and the other firmly planted in the skies. Among all pseudos, it was perhaps the most unusual, a being that embodied stealth, speed, and spectral strangeness. The journey began with Dreepy, a tiny ghost dragon that seemed more like a playful spirit than a fearsome predator. Lore described it as haunting battlefields from ages past, a remnant of a species long gone, returning in ghostly form. As it grew into Dracloak, it carried younger Dreepy on its head like a guardian, a detail that immediately set it apart from any other line. This image of an older dragon protecting its young created a sense of community within its design, a rare trait for pseudos. When it finally evolved into its final form, the creature became sleek and streamlined, its head shaped like the nose of a jet fighter, with spectral Dreepy loaded and launched from its body like living projectiles. The design was striking in its fusion of ancient myth and modern technology. Its spectral origins tied it to ghosts of the past, while its aerodynamic shape suggested modern stealth aircraft. The combination created something unique, a Pokemon that felt as though it belonged to multiple eras at once. It looked like a phantom fighter jet, a dragon weaponized by its own body, blurring the line between predator and machine. In battle, the Phantom quickly became one of the most feared pseudos ever created. Its blistering speed and wide move pool made it a nightmare to counter. Moves like Dragon Darts, its signature attack, emphasized its uniqueness by using the Dreepy it carried as living ammunition, a concept both playful and unsettling. Its ghost typing added further versatility, letting it slip past opponents' defenses with spectral strikes. Competitive players found it to be one of the most dominant forces in Galar, a pseudo that rivaled even older legends in sheer utility. The anime highlighted its playful yet eerie qualities. Episodes often depicted it carrying Dreepy with care, but when battle began, it launched them with frightening precision. This balance of nurturing and menace made it an especially memorable pseudo, one that embodied both familial bonds and predatory instincts. Its duality resonated with fans, reminding them that even the strangest designs could become beloved when tied to strong storytelling. The trading card game also leaned into its unique design. Many cards depicted the dragon with glowing spectral trails, launching Dreepy into battle against swirling night skies. Its holographic prints often emphasize the eerie mix of ghostly aura and aerodynamic sharpness, making them stand out in collections. For collectors, these cards became symbols of the Galar region itself, sleek, modern, and filled with mystery. Its Pokedex entries reinforced its spectral origins. Many described it as a remnant from ancient times, a dragon that once ruled battlefields before fading into ghostly existence. The lore added that it protected its offspring fiercely, even as it used them in battle, blurring the line between nurturing and combat. This storytelling gave it depth beyond stats, making it feel like a cultural myth within the region, a phantom that carried both history and future in its form. Cultural influences likely stemmed from both yokai spirits and modern technology. Its ghost typing ties it to wandering spirits in Japanese folklore, while its jet like body is reminiscent of stealth bombers and fighter planes. By combining the supernatural with the technological, the designers created a pseudo that resonated across multiple layers of symbolism. It felt both otherworldly and terrifyingly modern, a creature that could haunt both the skies and human imagination. For trainers, raising one was both a challenge and a delight. Dreepy was notoriously rare, often hidden away in remote areas. Its early stages were fragile, requiring patience and persistence. But once it reached its final form, the reward was enormous. A dragon that outsped nearly anything, striking with ghostly force before opponents could react. Owning one became a mark of prestige, a signal of dedication, and a reward for patience. Its presence in Galar's champion, Leon's team, further cemented its reputation. Seeing the strongest trainer in the region wield the Phantom gave it immediate cultural weight. Just as Cynthia's Garchomp became tied to Sinnoh's competitive identity, Dragapult became inseparable from Galar's. Its role as the champion's ace reflected its balance of power, speed, and mystique, a true symbol of the region's themes of modernity and tradition. Ultimately, Dragapult demonstrated that pseudo-legendaries could embrace strangeness while still being awe-inspiring. It wasn't just a dragon or a predator, it was a spectral fighter jet, a fusion of past and future, of myth and machinery. For players, it was a reminder that the category of pseudos was never limited by expectations, but defined by awe. By blending nurturing bonds with haunting power, the Phantom carved a place for itself as one of the most unique pseudos ever created. Each new generation brings with it the anticipation of discovering the next great pseudo legendary, and in the Paldea region, that honor went to a dragon unlike any seen before, covered in icy plates and wielding power drawn from both myth and modern imagery. Baxcalibur became the latest entry in a long line of legendary level companions. Where earlier pseudos embodied chaos, intellect, or compassion, this one stood as a frozen juggernaut, a towering beast whose design echoed both prehistoric reptiles and fantastical monsters of ice. The line began with Frigibax, a small, spiny creature that hinted at its icy nature but didn't yet command respect. As it grew into Arctibax, its body gained sharper edges and larger fins, its cold aura becoming unmistakable. Finally, after the dedication required to bring it to full strength, it transformed into its final form, a massive bipedal dragon, scales glittering like frozen armor, with a dorsal blade resembling the spine of a sword or even a weaponized fin. This evolutionary journey carried it from humble beginnings to one of the most fearsome titans of its era. Design inspirations for the icy beast are multifaceted. Many fans note its resemblance to Godzilla, particularly in its upright stance, jagged backplates, and overall bulk. The icy twist adds another layer of symbolism, connecting it to legends of frozen titans that emerge from glaciers or slumbering mountains. Some interpretations even see its dorsal fin as a nod to medieval weaponry, making it appear like a living blade. By combining kaiju motifs with ice element aesthetics, the designers created a pseudo that felt both familiar and new, a chilling reimagining of the monster archetype. In battle, the frozen colossus established itself as a powerhouse. Its immense attack stat allowed it to crush opponents with devastating moves, while its unique signature attack, Glaive Rush, emphasized its identity as a relentless warrior. This move forced the beast to commit fully to its strike, lowering its own defenses afterward, symbolizing the risk and reward of unleashing overwhelming force. Trainers who used it well discovered that it could swing entire battles with a single, decisive blow, cementing its reputation as one of Paldea's most dangerous threats. The anime and other media highlighted its intimidating stature. Episodes often depicted it towering over opponents, its icy breath freezing landscapes, and its blade like dorsal fin glowing with cold energy. Unlike gentler pseudos such as Gudra, this dragon leaned into intimidation, its very presence meant to overwhelm. Yet there were also moments where it was shown as loyal to its trainers, reinforcing the balance that defines pseudos beings of immense power who nonetheless bond deeply with those who raise them. In the trading card game, the icy juggernaut quickly became a fan favorite. Holographic cards often portrayed it unleashing Glaive Rush, icy shards scattering across the artwork. Other prints leaned into its Godzilla like imagery, showing it roaring amidst frozen mountains or standing tall against crumbling landscapes. Collectors appreciated not just its power in gameplay, but also its striking design, which captured the essence of a kaiju reborn as a dragon of ice. Its Pokédex entries added layers of lore that deepened its mystique. Some described it as using its dorsal fin like a blade, striking with a chilling slash that could cleave opponents in two. Others emphasized its endurance, noting that its icy body allowed it to withstand extreme environments. These descriptions painted it not only as a predator, but as a survivor, a dragon capable of thriving in places where few others could endure. Culturally, The frozen titan draws on themes of resilience and unstoppable force. Just as earlier pseudos like Tyranitar embodied mountains and destruction, this creature represented the immovable weight of ice and cold. It evoked images of glaciers slowly reshaping landscapes, an unstoppable natural phenomenon that cannot be rushed or resisted. By tying its identity to ice, the designers gave it a distinct elemental role within the pseudo family, the first to claim the power of frozen landscapes as its own. For trainers, raising one was no small feat. Frigibax was rare and often hidden in secluded, snowy environments. Even after capture, its growth required persistence, as its early stages were fragile compared to the might it would later achieve. But those who endured found themselves with a partner that felt monumental, a dragon that embodied both loyalty and devastation. To stand beside the frozen colossus was to feel like one commanded the weight of a glacier itself. In competitive play, it quickly carved a niche. Though not as fast as some pseudos, its raw attack power and unique move options made it unpredictable. Some trainers leaned on its tanky bulk, while others used its ability to unleash massive damage in short bursts. Regardless of strategy, its presence always demanded respect, forcing opponents to prepare specifically for it. This respect mirrored the awe pseudos always commanded a recognition that they were no ordinary Pokemon, but apex figures of their respective generations. Ultimately, Baxcalibur solidified the legacy of pseudo legendaries by proving that even in the ninth generation, the designers could still surprise players with fresh concepts. It was a dragon that drew from kaiju, mythology, and the chilling force of nature wrapped together into a design that felt imposing yet noble. For players, it was both a challenge and a reward, a partner whose presence on a team elevated the entire journey. In the Frozen Colossus, trainers found a reminder that strength can be as cold and unstoppable as ice, and just as awe inspiring. Across the decades, each generation of Pokemon has introduced its own pseudo legendary, a creature designed not just for raw strength, but to embody the essence of its era. From the Dragon of Dreams in Kanto to the Frozen Colossus of Paldea, these titans have become milestones in the history of the franchise. They represent patience, triumph, and dedication rewards for trainers willing to raise rare and difficult partners into legendary level companions. What unites them all is the journey they demand. None are easy to find, and none evolve quickly. From the caves hiding Larvitar to the snowy slopes concealing Frigibax, pseudos test a trainer's persistence before rewarding them with power. This shared pattern creates a narrative through line across generations. True strength requires patience, and only the most dedicated achieve it. The fact that each pseudo carries a demanding evolution line is no accident. It is the core of their identity. Design-wise, these creatures serve as reflections of their cultural and regional inspirations. Dragonite embodied Eastern dragon imagery, benevolent and guardian-like. Tyranitar echoed kaiju cinema, a mountain-shaking beast of destruction. Salamence symbolized the Western dream of flight, a predator ruling skies. Metagross fused intellect and machinery, inspired by mecha and supercomputers. Garchomp embodied modern speed and predation, a land shark shaped like a fighter jet. Hydreigon tapped into mythology. The multi-headed Hydra feared for its chaos. Gudra defied expectations by showing strength through gentleness. Kommo-o honored discipline, its scales clattering like ritual drums. Dragapult blended ghostly folklore with the sleek shape of stealth aircraft. And Baxcalibur tied itself to kaiju once again, but with a frozen twist, a glacier given form. This variety demonstrates how pseudo legendaries are more than powerful Pokemon, they are reflections of the themes of their regions. Each design is not random, but a mirror of the generation's cultural and narrative direction. In this way, they stand apart from ordinary Pokemon, occupying a symbolic space closer to legendaries themselves. The competitive scene has also cemented their importance. Nearly every pseudo has found a place in high level play, shaping strategies and forcing opponents to account for their presence. Garchomp's speed and power dominated entire formats. Metagross became a staple of balanced teams, offering resilience and precision. Dragonite and Salamence both thrived with versatile move pools. Hydreigon overwhelmed with special attacks, while Gudra became a wall of endurance. Even pseudos less dominant in competitive play retained reputations as dangerous threats. This legacy shows how the category has remained consistent. Pseudos are not just lore driven, but gameplay defining. The trading card game has echoed this prestige. Pseudos often receive dramatic artwork, roaring across ruined landscapes, soaring through skies, or shimmering with holographic brilliance. Collectors see them as treasures, not only for their rarity, but for what they represent, the pinnacle of non legendary strength. Owning a card of a pseudo feels like holding a piece of that region's story, a reminder of the long journey it takes to raise one in the games. The anime, too, has highlighted their importance. Champions and Elite Four members often wield pseudos as their signature partners. Cynthia's Garchomp, Steven's Metagross, Lance's Dragonite. These pairings are burned into the memories of fans. By tying pseudos to the most powerful trainers, the anime reinforced their identity as creatures that stand just below legendaries, companions of those at the peak of skill. Yet despite these shared traits, what makes pseudos fascinating is their diversity. Each one tells a different story about strength. Some embody chaos, like Hydreigon. Others symbolize loyalty, like Gudra. Some emphasize intellect, like Metagross, while others reflect primal forces of nature, like Tyranitar or Baxcalibur. This range ensures that every generation adds a new flavor to the roster, preventing the category from growing stale. Trainers can always look forward to discovering not just a new powerhouse, but a new story about what strength means. There's also the emotional element of raising them. Players often remember their first time nurturing a weak Gibble, a fragile Goomy, or a clumsy Jangmo-o into a titan that could topple champions. This journey creates bonds that feel distinct from legendaries, which are often caught fully formed. A legendary might be awe-inspiring, but a pseudo is personal earned through patience and effort. This distinction makes pseudos some of the most beloved Pokemon in the franchise, resonating deeply with players' childhood memories. Another fascinating aspect is how pseudos blur the line between myth and reality. Many of them could easily be mistaken for legendaries if not for their evolutionary lines. Their lore often elevates them to near mythic status, and their power frequently rivals legendary creatures. Yet they remain obtainable within the ordinary flow of the game, making them feel like legends that belong to the player rather than distant figures in the story. This accessibility gives them a unique charm. They are both mythical and personal at once. Ultimately, pseudo legendaries are not defined only by their stats or designs, but by the role they play in the story of Pokemon itself. They are the challenges that test persistence, the companions that reward patience, the titans that mirror their regions, and the bridges between myth and reality. From the benevolent dragon of Kanto to the frozen colossus of Paldea, they form a lineage that spans decades, each one adding to a shared legacy. Together, they tell a story about growth, strength, and the beauty of dedication, a story that players around the world carry with them long after the journey ends. From the earliest days of Pokemon, pseudo legendaries have stood apart as creatures that symbolize the dedication, patience, and triumph of trainers. They are not simply powerful partners hidden in caves or mountains. They are cultural milestones that echo across games, anime, trading cards, and even playground conversations. Each generation has introduced one of these titans, and together they form a living history of how Pokemon itself has grown and evolved. At their heart, pseudos are designed to embody the concept of reward. The games present them as rare, often elusive creatures that require determination to raise. They begin weak or unremarkable, whether it's a tiny larvitar hiding in caves, a fragile gumi that can barely hold its own in battle, or a dreepy that drifts along like a playful ghost. The player who chooses to nurture these companions undertakes a journey of persistence. By the time the final evolution emerges, be it the mountain breaking Tyranitar, the sky slicing Salamence, or the frozen juggernaut Baxcalibur, the trainer has not just caught a strong Pokemon, but proven their own endurance. That emotional bond between player and partner is what makes pseudos so beloved. Their cultural impact reaches far beyond gameplay. In the trading card game, pseudos are consistently given special attention. Their cards often receive dramatic artwork that highlights their immense power, cities crumbling under Tyranitar's feet, Hydreigon emerging from swirling shadows, Dragapult soaring with Dreepy in tow. These visual depictions cement their identity as creatures of awe and respect, making them highly sought after collectibles. Children who held a holo card of one of these beasts felt like they possessed a piece of the franchise's mythos, a treasure that linked them to the stories unfolding in games and shows. The anime has been just as important in elevating pseudos to legendary status. Lance's Dragonite, Steven's Metagross, Cynthia's Garchomp, and Leon's Dragapult became more than just powerful teammates, they became symbols of mastery. When champions and elite trainers wield pseudos, it reinforces the idea that these are not ordinary creatures, but companions worthy of the greatest trainers in the world. For many fans, the first time they saw one of these dragons animated on screen left an impression that never faded. Competitively, pseudos often define eras. Garchomp became so dominant that it reshaped entire formats. Metagross anchored balanced teams with its resilience. Hydreigon terrified opponents with its versatility, while Gudra found its niche as a special wall. Even pseudos that struggled to shine consistently in battle still carried reputations that forced opponents to prepare for them. Their presence in competitive play ensured that they weren't just narrative titans, but also practical forces that shaped how the games were played. Beyond mechanics, pseudos carry symbolic weight. Each one reflects the themes of its generation: Dragonite as a guardian of wonder, Tyranitar as destruction incarnate, Salamence as the dream of flight, Metagross as intellect, Garchomp as predation, Hydreigon as chaos, Gudra as compassion, Kommo-o as discipline, Dragapult as spectral mystery, and Baxcalibur as icy resilience. Together, they form a tapestry of ideas about what strength means, not just physical power, but emotional, cultural, and symbolic weight. This diversity ensures that every trainer can find a pseudo that resonates with them, whether they admire loyalty, chaos, speed, or intellect. The emotional stories players attach to these creatures also cannot be overlooked. For many, their first pseudo was a turning point in their childhood adventure. The thrill of finally evolving a long struggling companion, the pride of sending it into battle against a champion, and the satisfaction of knowing they raised it from weakness to might. These memories remain some of the most cherished in Pokemon history. Unlike legendaries, which are often caught fully formed, pseudos embody growth, making them feel deeply personal. Even myths and rumors have surrounded them. Tyranitar's kaiju inspirations sparked discussions about Godzilla. Hydreigon's dark Pokedex entries fueled debates about whether Pokemon could ever be too frightening. Dragapult's spectral fighter jet design led to theories about ancient wars and ghostly remnants. Fans turned these details into playground legends, extending the mystique of pseudos beyond what the developers explicitly wrote. As cultural giants, pseudos also serve as a bridge across generations. Parents who grew up raising Dragonite or Salamence now introduce their children to newer pseudos like Dragapult or Baxcalibur. This continuity keeps the fascination alive, ensuring that each era has its own titanic companion to define it. In this way, pseudos are more than powerful. Pokemon, they are traditions, passed down like myths from one generation to the next. Ultimately, pseudo legendaries are proof of how much thought and care Game Freak has put into balancing gameplay with narrative, design, and culture. They are the crown jewels of each region's Pokedex, not only because of their stats, but because of what they represent. They remind players that true strength requires patience, that growth comes with struggle, and that even the smallest beginnings can lead to legendary triumphs. From the benevolent dragon of Kanto to the icy juggernaut of Paldea, pseudos have shaped how fans experience Pokemon not just as a game, but as a cultural phenomenon. They are the stories we tell, the cards we collect, the champions we admire, and the companions we remember. They stand as monuments within the franchise, not divine legends beyond reach, but partners earned through time, care, and dedication. And that is why, for so many, pseudo legendaries are not just powerful Pokemon, they are the heart of what makes the journey unforgettable. And so, the journey through the world of pseudo legendary Pokemon comes to a close. From the benevolent dragon that once guided the skies to the frozen titan that slumbers in glaciers, each of these companions carries with them not only strength, but stories, stories of patience, of growth, and of bonds formed between trainer and partner. They are reminders that greatness is rarely instant. It is built step by step, from the smallest beginnings to the proudest triumphs. As you rest, imagine standing at the edge of a wide landscape, the echoes of these mighty creatures lingering in the air. Their roars, once fearsome, now fade into gentle hums that blend with the rhythm of your breath. Each dragon, each titan, each guardian leaves behind not battle cries, but whispers of endurance, telling you that all journeys, even your own, can lead to greatness if you walk them with patience and care. Let the memory of these titans guide you deeper into calm. The skies above, the mountains below, the frozen peaks, the dark caves, and the endless oceans, all quiet now, all at peace. Just as every region has its guardian, every night has its rest. Allow your thoughts to settle, like sand after a storm or snow upon a mountain, and drift slowly into sleep. The world of Pokemon waits for you again tomorrow, but for now, your journey is complete. Close your eyes and let the legends carry you into dreams.